Hello and welcome to The Take. I'm your host, Chesley McNeil. You know, each weekday we look at the stories making headlines, but then we bring in the experts from our community to give their take. Here's a look back at some of the top takes from this week and how those in the know are seeing the stories that impact you. Homeowner associations love them or leave them, right? Lawmakers once again having before them several bills to try to give homeowners more power back if they feel like they're being mistreated or unfairly treated by their board. Senior investigator Rebecca Lindstrom joins us now to talk about what lawmakers are trying to do now. And we've been following this for years. What are you learning now, Rebecca?
Well, you know, I think a lot of homeowners went into this legislative session feeling like their voices were finally being heard. There was a Senate subcommittee that met late last year to study the issue, but so far nothing has come out of that. The House does have a bill, though, that looks at how board elections are conducted, especially in communities where there's a lot of disagreement, and it requires board members to actually live in the neighborhood. This stems from complaints about Airbnbs or absentee landlords, people saying that they have taken control of their board and are not working in the best interest of the residents, but instead of the renters. But that bill has yet to even get a hearing in committee.
All right, so you're finding an important change that happened last year.
And so, you know, we are just finding that a lot of people are frustrated with their boards and they just want to know what on earth can they do at this point in time, Chesley.
So I understand you found out last year, a change happened last year that has a lot of people frustrated that they still don't even know about. What's that?
Yeah, and I apologize, broke off from hearing you there, but I think I got the last part of your question. Right now, it says that a board cannot take away your voting rights over fines, okay? So we've got assessments and we've got fines. Most people who live in an HOA know if you get in trouble, you lose access to the community pool or the tennis courts. But now you can't lose access to your voting rights. And this is important, Chesley, because I have talked with homeowners that have tried to remove what they feel is a bad board, but they just can't, because every time the vote comes up, they get slapped with some kind of fine for parking or tall grass.
So you can still lose your voting rights if you don't pay your dues, though, right? If you don't pay, yeah. Okay.
Right, because like I said, you've got your dues. That's for some people, it might be a monthly assessment that they have to pay, especially if you're in a townhouse or a condo, or if you're in a homeowners association, that's usually an annual fee. So that's different. You can lose your voting rights if you don't pay those assessments. We're talking about fines. This protection only relates to those fines. But tonight at 11, we're going to show you how Georgia really allows for what I call messy math. That messy math makes it hard for some homeowners to figure out just what on earth they are being charged. And I speak with a woman in Nevada. She heads up a state office there that helps homeowners resolve these kinds of disputes with their HOA. She also says the way fines are calculated and communication is important. Take a look.
If I'm looking at what you all say the rules are, and then based off these rules, you're telling me it's something different, it's like, okay, we're following what I'm supposed to do, but you're telling me, no, you have to do it this way. And there's really no conversation.
What we're finding out is people don't actually actively listen. What they say is, I'm listening to you, I heard you, but did you really hear me? Did you really hear my concerns? So communication is the key, is the starting point to disputes happening.
And, you know, it was really interesting talking with Nevada and that ombudsman office, because that is one of the things that people here have pushed for. They're like, hey, if we just had an office that we could go to ask our questions, to really understand what are our rights, what's the HOA's rights, and where we're kind of finding that conflict in the middle, then maybe we could avoid costly court battles and things like that. But there aren't a lot of states that have those ombudsman's offices. Hard word to say sometimes, but some people feel it's a really important entity that they wish we had here in Georgia.
Maybe the case because, you know, a lot of people are moving here from other places. Obviously, myself didn't really understand what an HOA was about and had a couple violations myself. And so it's like, what? They control it? And so trying to figure all that out is very difficult, Rebecca.
It is, and so you can see, like, if you have that violation, a lot of times people, they take care of it right away. Sometimes they have questions. They don't really understand exactly what the HOA is asking of them, and so they're trying to get more information before they fix the problem. They want to make sure that if they're going to spend the money, that they fix it correctly.
Right.
And the challenge that we're finding in some communities is while they're trying to get that information, the property management company that's sort of helping out the HOA is actually tacking on fines and late fees. And so then even after they get the problem resolved, they don't realize that this debt is now on their ledger.
Wow.
And then they're even more confused. And then they even have more questions.
Right.
And so it kind of spirals, and it doesn't need to. And I think that that's the big push from people right now is a lot of the challenges and frustrations that people are having. They don't need to exist. They just need a way to kind of force both sides to communicate in a way that both of them can understand the rules and the responsibilities and move forward to keep these neighborhoods great.
With a scary moment this morning on Delta Airlines where a plane was filled with smoke midair. This was yesterday on a flight from Atlanta to South Carolina. Nearly 100 passengers and flight crew were on board. After emergency landing was made, everyone fortunately got off that plane safely. What is going on? This just a little more than a week over another Delta airline flight, you may have remembered, crashed on a runway in Toronto. All these questions, all this is raising questions about flight safety, of course. So you know we had to bring in Alan Armstrong, aviation lawyer, and he is a pilot himself based right here in Atlanta. Alan, welcome to the show.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, man, but I got to know about these flights. First of all, I want to get your take on all of this. What's your take on these flights?
Well, the precautionary landings with smoke or odors or fumes are appropriate for the flight crew. That's a good call by the flight crew. That's exactly what they should do. And if there's a question about the airworthiness of your aircraft, you're required by the regulation to land as soon as practicable. That doesn't mean right now, but it means as soon as you reasonably can to investigate and ascertain the airplane's airworthy. So that's entirely appropriate. That's a good call by the flight crew. The flight crews of Delta Airlines are very, very highly trained, very capable pilots, so their actions are entirely appropriate.
So now let's talk about this in particular. Now this was like a haze, a smoke. We saw the video, and it kind of filled the plane. Atlanta to Columbia, South Carolina is a very short flight, to say the least. But they decided to turn around and come right back. Was that the safe move you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
If we don't guess with airplanes. We don't estimate. We don't guess. We have to know what we have, and we have to appreciate the actual condition of the aircraft. And the aircraft is pre-flight before it's taken by the flight crew. They sign off and say the aircraft is acceptable for flight. If the airplane begins to demonstrate it has a problem or may have a problem, you need to get on the ground and figure out what you got. You don't want to troubleshoot the airplane while you're flying. That's not a good move. And besides, many of the pilots are not mechanics anyway. That's not the time to be investigating an airplane for airworthiness.
Yeah.
The best thing to do is to get the airplane on the ground and have maintenance examine it and find out if this is just some spilled coffee on the heater or if this is a short wire, and what a short, of wire that's been shorted out. So these are things that should be investigated on the ground carefully and thoroughly, and not when you're airborne.
Tell me, what type of protection does passengers have when they experience stuff like this?
Well, protections in terms of an aircraft diverting, that's not a traumatic event. I mean, the fact that the airplane's got smoke or odor or things of that nature, that's not normally a trauma. Now, if you're referring to the accident in Montreal, that's a wholly different, in Toronto, that's a wholly different animal. That's a completely different animal. We can go into that if you want to.
Absolutely, absolutely. We know that Delta offered a certain amount of fee or whatever, but 2 of the passengers so far we know have lawyered up, really. What kind of protection do they have?
They have protections under the Warsaw and the Montreal Convention. Warsaw is 1929, Montreal is 1955. And these provide certain minimum amounts of money that you can get for an injury or death. And they are let's see here, there are 100,000 drawing rights under Article 22, and that works out to about $131,000. Now, that cap can be broken in the event that the airline doesn't prove that they were not negligent or doesn't show that the fault lies with a third party. So you can get more than that, but without regard to fault, you get $131,000 or 100,000 special drawing rights under the Montreal Convention.
Gotcha.
And I think that Delta offering $30,000 per passenger is a very generous and very responsible act on its part.
All right, got to get your take on this. Last one, quick answer if you can. Despite all these incidents, how safe do you feel like it is to fly?
It's the safest way to travel. End of conversation. It just is.
I knew he was going to say that, but we keep having these problems. So guess what? I'm going to bring you back. I'm going to bring you back on the show. We'll talk more about it. Hopefully we won't see any more of these, but thanks for being here and giving us your insight, Alan Armstrong. Really appreciate it. Finding a safe long-term investment can seem tough in this economy, but one avenue which remains popular is real estate. You know it. New figures from Bank Rate shows 24% of Americans pick real estate as their top long-term investment. Just ahead and leading the list is the stock market. 21% turn to cash investments like savings and CDs. With that much interest in real estate, what's better for you? Folks looking for a new home in Atlanta, living inside the perimeter, ITP, or outside the perimeter, OTP? Join us now to break down all this real estate interests is Jennifer Houston, an associate broker with HomeSmart. Welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good to see you. Let's start off with these numbers. 24% of Americans seeing real estate as their go-to long-term investment. Give us your take on that.
Listen, home ownership is the way to go, and especially in this market today with the equity, the amount of equity that people have in their homes. And so where can you go and invest in a home and turn around and have a return on your investment 6 figures? Many of my sellers rather, who have purchased from me in the past over 20 years ago, they're sitting on 6 figures. So the return on the investment is huge.
Wow, that big, huh?
Yeah.
So how does that work real quickly? Do you go ahead and invest in a home? Do you have to stay in it for a certain time? Do you have to remodel? What do you have to do?
You definitely have to put some money into it. If you want top dollars, you definitely have to invest into it and keep it up. You know, it's not a guarantee that you're going to get 6 figures, but depending upon where you invest and where you purchase, that's where your return is going to be greater. So inside the perimeter, outside the perimeter, there's some great opportunities out there for return on your investments, but you definitely have to some places you have to sit on it. Some you can literally flip. You know, we have investors that are flipping property as well.
You talked about location. So tell us, inside the perimeter better than outside the perimeter or vice versa?
I'm going to stay neutral. You're not going to set me up. Inside the perimeter and outside of the perimeter, just as equally as important.
I'm looking for some tips. You know?
Okay.
Really
So if you stay inside the perimeter, you know, few of the fastest growing areas like West Midtown, Old Fourth Ward, Reynoldstown and Edgewood, East Atlanta Village, and Somerville, those are inside the perimeter. But when you're looking for outside the perimeter, you have some growing markets like Alpharetta and Milton, Woodstock, Duluth and Swanee. You got McDonough and Stockbridge, and then Dallas and Ackworth. And so when you look and compare the two, you have many opportunities. When you're inside the perimeter, you're going to be closer to the city, you're going to do public transportation, and if you're outside the perimeter, you're literally going to need to have a vehicle. And they're being so ahead of the game now. You even have some live, work, play areas outside of the perimeter, so you don't necessarily have to be inside the perimeter, which is awesome.
Gotcha. Now I'm watching this and I'm feeling your excitement. I'm excited about trying to make that money. You know, is this something that's hard to get into?
As far as purchasing a home?
Yeah.
No, not at all. All you need is to get pre-approved with one of our preferred lenders. And it's exciting because so many people think you have to have this super credit score.
Yeah.
You really don't. If you pick a professional realtor to do a consultation with, you'll find out it's not as difficult as you think it is. The biggest thing is you have to have a professional realtor so that we can walk you through the steps, because there are several steps, but by the time you finish, you'll feel very accomplished when you do.
Should we be looking for more fixer-uppers or something that's already established, or can you tell me that?
Yeah, so when I work with my first-time home buyers, I always ask them, don't look at this as your forever home, because they'll always say, I'm going to stay here forever, and I'll get that call 2 years later, I'm ready to sell. So I ask them to look at something that they can have some additional income as well. You know, if they're single and they're looking at a home and they don't have a family, guess what? If you have a basement, you can literally lease that out to a family member so they can help you with your mortgage, or you can literally buy a duplex or a quad and start earning some income immediately. So it's so many first-time homebuyer programs out there where you are able to buy quads and duplex buildings and be able to have that income take care of your mortgage. So it's way better than renting.
Absolutely. I got 3 sons that's out there like that now. I'm trying to get them to invest. Jennifer Houston, so much great information. Hey, this is not your last time on the show. We're going to bring you back. And again, bring them tips now. I need the tips.
Oh, I have some tips. I have them.
We're going to go over those the next time you come, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate you being on the show. Early childhood literacy statistics in the United States show that many children are struggling to read, especially those from low-income families. Now, a recent collaboration with the Children's Museum of Atlanta and Georgia State University is making a significant impact right here in our city. Here joining us is Karen Kelly. She is the Director of Exhibits and Education at the Children's Museum of Atlanta. Karen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Oh man, we're excited to have you. You know, we want to start right here with these recent literacy rates. It says that 1 in 4 children in America grow up without learning how to read. What's your take on that right away?
My take on that is sad, and we should do something about it. It is a serious challenge. I know educators and schools do their hardest work, but it's been a challenging time, especially since COVID. As kids go back to school and they lost some learning time. And there's also some wonderful new research out about how to really strengthen kids' reading rates.
Is there a direct correlation to, you talked about COVID, you talked about, is like social media or maybe devices? Is there a direct correlation to that at all, or is that just something we blame it on?
There's actually some correlation to that. Some of the research shows that if kids are on devices and they're not having actual live conversations with people, it's not the same thing. You can listen to words, but really conversations and back and forth help teach kids language better. They learn context and they learn definitions of words as they're talking to an adult, and it helps make them more fluid. There's also some research that says that COVID has caused some challenges. Kids weren't in school, they weren't in early learning, so they weren't kind of getting that language enrichment before they hit elementary school.
Gotcha. So a little piece of a generation being lost due to COVID. Talk to me about this new collaboration that you have with Georgia State University.
Yes, we have this wonderful collaboration with Georgia State University after the past 3 years. We're all about play and learning. So we want the kids to have fun, engage, be self-guiding on their activities, but we also want them to learn things. So we worked with Georgia State to help us find the best mix to really help kids engage, but also learn language at the same time. So we worked in three Georgia counties, Fulton, Pulaski, and Tattnall counties. We work with their teachers in the classrooms, all their pre-K students and all their kindergarten students, and we learned how to really work with kids and engage with language and give them time to respond. Because as they engage and they learn the words, if they're using them, they remember them even more.
Yeah. What kind of results are you seeing?
So we were very excited about the results of the study that we did with Georgia State, and Georgia State has been amazing. They have a whole department devoted to this and devoted to also working with low-income students and how we can help them succeed. Their advice and counsel was key, and they watched our programs. They guided us. It was a really terrific thing. But the kids also had fun. Absolutely.
Are the results that you're seeing worth the program now expanding? Is that what you have for the future?
Yes, that's what we're hoping for the future. We are working to keep our virtual programming going because a lot of rural counties have a hard time taking field trips. So we're working to keep that piece going, but we're also working on our in-person programs. So we're really trying to work and engage with kids. We ongoingly assess the impact through information from the teachers, and that really helps us keep on track. We found that during the study that kids remembered 75% of the words they taught in a 40-minute segment. That's huge.
Yes.
We weren't there. We had maybe 45 minutes with the kids and they remembered 75% of the words, and they were long words. We had pre-K kids knowing what precipitation meant.
Wow.
Or evaporation. That's huge.
That's very huge. It sounds like you're talking weather, so I want to be invited in to help out with this program.
Exactly.
I see where you're going there, Karen. I see where you're going. Yeah, we love to help you out anytime, of course, and love to see you guys collaborating to help literacy rates in our area. Really appreciate what you're doing, Karen. Appreciate that.
Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Have a great day. Moving Atlanta forward. That's the message from Mayor Andre Dickens. In his annual State of the City address last night, he laid out his vision for the year, focusing on public safety, affordable housing, and economic growth. This comes as he's also gearing up to run for re-election later on this year. The mayor focused on his administration's progress, pointing to a drop in crime, major infrastructure improvements, and efforts to expand affordable housing. He also said he's focused on economic development, including downtown revitalization projects like Centennial Yards and the Civic Center redevelopment, and preparing the city for the 2026 FIFA World Cup.
I want to ensure that when the World Cup hits Atlanta next year, that it doesn't just happen to Atlanta, that it happens with Atlanta. That's why we launched Showcase Atlanta. Showcase Atlanta will live beyond the World Cup to ensure that when a major event comes to Atlanta, that Atlantans truly are the ones that benefit.
All right, here with his take on the State of the City address is Member at Large of the Atlanta City Council, Matt Westmoreland. Welcome to the show.
Great to be here with you.
All right, give us your take on that address.
Yeah, I mean, we think about last night, a room full of Atlanta, representing the diversity of this city, talking about the achievements of the last 3 years, and looking forward to the future. You've hit a couple of highlights already, whether it's dropping crime, the thousands of affordable housing units that have come online, and then looking to the future, to the World Cup that'll be here in 2026, to the parkland. We've acquired 600 acres of new parkland over the last 3 years and been bringing that online so that more Atlantans can enjoy it every single day.
Well, you mentioned it, the drop in crime. The mayor says that homicides are down to roughly about a quarter where they were in 2022. How much do you think the mayor can take for that stat? How much credit can he take?
Sure. I think if you look at the investments we've made in public safety, whether it's raising pay for police officers and firefighters, buying hundreds of take-home cars for officers to take home with themselves. You know, last summer, Atlanta city government helped employ 14,000 youth, and we might have seen a 26% drop in homicides over the last couple of years, but we saw a 50% drop in youth crime last summer. And so I think if you take all of those different pieces together, you see a really concerted effort on the part of a lot of different folks to help make folks feel safe.
Okay, so then the mayor says he mentioned that he'd be running for re-election. Okay, let's listen to a little piece of his speech at the end right there. Let's roll it.
Okay.
I hope one thing has been made clear here tonight, that I'm a man of my word. When I make promises, the group project sets in motion and we get the job done. So hear me clearly when I say this. I promise that in Atlanta, our love will look like something. And love looks like fighting every day for progress and breaking down barriers to opportunity.
Sounds like he's, trying to set himself up for the next 4 years. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, it sounds fired up and ready to go to me. I've had the opportunity to serve as a colleague of Andre when he was on council, now Mayor Dickens, and we got more work to do. We recently, a couple months ago, made the largest investment ever in homelessness, but now we've got to get that $60 million out the door and get people into homes. We've just got more work to do. We made investment last week in opening 2 new grocery stores, one downtown, one down Campbellton Road, but we've got to get those open. There's just a lot more to do to both get Atlanta ready for the World Cup. We're going to have 300,000 visitors over the course of a month. It's going to be great. But we got more work to do to make downtown Atlanta a place that is home to tens of thousands of people. And it sounded to me like the mayor's ready for another 4 years.
Yeah. Do you see any challenges rising up against him?
I don't actually. It's been pretty quiet so far. It's almost March, and so Atlanta's got a pretty long history when mayors seek re-election of those people getting another 4 years, and I suspect the same will be true this time around.
How much will he have to get done of the things he promised for that to happen?
Well, from a political perspective, I think he's in pretty good shape. But fortunately, Mayor Dickens doesn't just look at politics. I think he looks at, he's got housing goals that he wants to meet. He's got a AAA finance rating that we need to keep. Youth are going to be ready for another summer program. We've got work to do downtown and elsewhere. There's a long list of things that'll keep us busy for the next 4.5, 5 years.
On that list, what would be the biggest, you say?
What would be the biggest?
Yeah.
Probably housing.
Okay.
And infrastructure. I think we've got housing units that we've got to deliver, and then we've got to continue to pave streets, to pour sidewalks, and to protect bike lanes. That's probably the topic I hear the most about from Atlantans. Is we want to be able to drive smoothly in our cars, but we want to get out of our cars and walk on a sidewalk or get in a protected bike lane, and we've got to continue to deliver those.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Got a big tournament coming up in 2026, so I know you're gearing up for that as well. Matt Westmoreland, I want to thank you for coming on the show and giving us your insight on last night's speech.
Always appreciate the invite.
All right. Appreciate it. Take care. Have a great day. New data out showing the American consumer is getting worried about the economy. Yeah, the consumer index, confidence index shows how people feel about the economy right now, with 100 being neutral. The index for February came in at 89.3. That's a big drop from January's mark of 105, and it's the lowest it's been since June of last year. Here to break down those figures for us is a good friend of the show, Morgan Ward, the assistant professor of marketing at Emory. Good to have you back on the show, Morgan.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, give us your take on these figures that came out yesterday.
Yeah, so we took quite a drop, and the biggest drop, unfortunately, since August of 2021. And what the confidence metric is measuring is essentially how optimistic people feel about their own finances. So this is a pretty good indicator of how much they are willing to spend in the coming months, and it actually is pretty correlated with how the economy will do in the next 6 months or so. So it's something that's certainly worth paying attention to.
When you look at those numbers, so 100 is neutral. I'm saying 98.3 doesn't seem that far away. Are we really on shaky ground?
Are we on shaky ground? You know, I think that this is the third month in a row that it's dropped, and so this is an indication. It doesn't mean that this is a foregone conclusion, right? Certainly, this doesn't say that our economy is going straight into recession. It's just one indicator that people are feeling less confident. They're seeing higher prices. They're worried about tariffs. You know, 97,000 jobs have been cut from the government, so they are seeing that information, and it just makes people a little nervous about how their financial health is going to be in the next 6 months.
How much should we tie this to the new administration?
I would say that any change is a surprise and can lead to concerns and fear because you just don't know what to expect. So I also think that the tariffs and that fairly substantial change, especially the ones that are coming in March that were delayed from February, are making people concerned because, of course, we import a lot from Canada and Mexico. And so it certainly has to do with the new administration and, of course, the new policies that they're putting into place.
When it comes to consumer confidence, is there one area more on shaky ground than another area?
Well, it measures two things. One of the things that it measures is your current feeling, and the other one is your feelings about your future. And so I would say that the one that's more reliable is probably your current feelings about your economic health. Your future, you're always anticipating something. So I think that you're seeing immediate responses from the stock market. The Dow is down, and so is the NASDAQ. But we can't really tell how people's 6 months projections are going to play out, right? So I think that the current is the more reliable.
Now, you're the expert, right? And you're also a consumer. So how do you feel personally about it? How are you, tell us how you feel about it.
Well, I mean, everybody worries about change. Personally, I think that consumer confidence issues an index is also responsive to the media and what we say in the media. So, reinforcing the fears of people is kind of cyclical and iterative. So those fears that are being reinforced can also play out. And so I think that we should, whenever something bad could happen, something good could happen. And so I'm optimistic. I hope that a lot of these changes are bringing up nervousness, but could actually have some really positive results in the long term.
I guess we need to be better aware, right, of what we're doing, what we're spending, how we're doing that. And I know you're on top of it always, and so we'll bring you back and talk more about it. Morgan Ward with Emory, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks so much for having me.
The Trump administration calling for massive cuts across federal agencies. This was the one topic that came up during the president's first cabinet meeting of his second administration. Yesterday, the Office of Management and Budget and the Office of Personnel Management issued a memo to agency leaders with guidance on how to conduct their reductions in force and reorganization plans. During the cabinet meeting, Trump advisor Elon Musk attempted to clarify the moves of his Department of Government Efficiency.
We wish to keep everyone who is doing a job that is essential and doing that job well. But if the job is not essential or they're not doing the job well, they obviously should not be on the public payroll. 15%.
No, I'd like to add, wait a minute. I'd like to add that those million people that haven't responded, though, Elon, they are on the bubble. You know, I wouldn't say that we're thrilled about it. You know, they haven't responded.
Roughly 80% of federal workers live outside of Washington, D.C. That includes a sizable chunk right here in Metro Atlanta who may find themselves out of work. Here now to navigate through these career pivots is the Atlanta-based jobs expert who operates Career Nomad, a coaching agency based in Gwinnett County, Ms. Patrice Lindo. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Chelsea, for having me. I'm looking forward to talking about this with you.
All right, so let's get started. What's your thoughts when you hear about all these potential cuts?
Well, Chelsea, what we are witnessing is one of the greatest workforce shakeups in government in our lifetime. So a lot of times, you know, if we think about not just the government agencies, but also adjacent industries, we will need to create our strategies and create it now.
All right, so now when it comes to certain jobs, there's still some people left in limbo. They don't know if they'll be out of work. How do you navigate that?
Well, the best way to navigate it is to take a strategic approach now. Start by reassessing your skills, start by identifying your transferable expertise and tailoring your personal brand and having those conversations to get into these roles before the layoffs happen, because it sounds like it's impending.
Do you see any hurdles trying to navigate coming out of the public sector to the private sector?
Well, you know what? I would rather reframe them as opportunities to bridge what you know and who you know to get your next opportunity. Because we all know the job market is oversaturated already. And online applications just get lost, right? Especially in times like these. So instead of solely relying on that, tap into your connections. Who is it that you're networking with? How have you shown up? Do they know what you're able to do? Talk about your transferable skills that you have. Talk about the impact that you have, because a lot of times positioning yourself in this way as an industry expert / leader / someone that comes with a lot of specialized experience, it helps you to land your next role a lot better than just applying online.
We talk about the bright side because we see this mainly as a negative thing. Is there a bright side to this? What would be the bright side to this?
I would say it's a chance to really shift your mindset, right? From job loss to career opportunity. If you think of this as not just updating your resume and not just applying everywhere, it's a way for you to really realign yourself with the work that means something to you. Because in times like this, it's a place for us to really just stand out and for us to really take a new spin when it comes to career. Maybe there's time for things to shake up and we have to do something with it, right? We can't just sit by and let it happen. So it's a way to kind of keep your iron sharp.
Have you had the opportunity to talk to any federal employees about what's going on?
Some. I do have some colleagues that have had this experience, and as they're navigating it, you know, initially, right, it's almost like the 7 stages of grief, right? And so as they're working through that, what I help them to remember is what impact they had, what are their key transferable skills, and what can they offer as they're going out back into the job market? Because the reality is a lot of them are not in the position nor timing, for example, for retirement, and they weren't necessarily planning for this to happen. It's literally just happening overnight. So we're working through that on a case-by-case basis, but definitely, you know, optimizing the experience that they have and trying to reframe their experience.
Gotcha. I would imagine that a lot of people are doing this online, searching for jobs. Is there anywhere else they can go to find a new career?
You know, online is definitely one place, but I would say getting out into industry meetups, you know, going to places like here in Atlanta, you know, at like places like the Gathering Spot. There's a lot to be said about the events that are happening, especially here around town. There are a lot of opportunities with conferences, both online and in person, but go into those industry conferences and make the connections. And it's in those connections that they can build not only their network, but gain the referrals that they need for the opportunities that exist. Because the thought that they exist only on LinkedIn would be a false one to have. A lot of these opportunities lie in the conversations that they have and letting people know what they're able and capable of doing.
How does it look
conversation.
How does it look for people in our area? Is the job market here pretty good?
The job market in Atlanta, I'm going to say it's been who you know for quite a while. So I think it's just more of that. So the important thing is to become visible, make sure people know who your personal brand is and the work that you've been doing and the work that you can add value to. So it's not, I would say, optimal, but it's definitely very hopeful. It's all in the connections.
All right, Atlanta-based jobs expert, Patricia Lindo, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Chelsea. Have a great day.
All right, do the same. NASA's latest mission to the stars is designed to unlock some of the cosmic secrets that remain a mystery. Here now is NASA's astrobiologist, space scientist, Sean Goldman, and welcome to the show, Sean. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, this seems to be an amazing mission, and you have 2 separate launches. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we've got 2 missions that are launching together, Punch and SphereX. Really excited about both of them. I'm also excited that we're able to stack them together on the same rocket. It means I can talk to you about heliophysics and nerd out about that, and also nerd out about astrophysics too. But it's also great because it's a good bargain for the American taxpayer. You know, we're buying one rocket and getting both missions launched into a polar orbit all at one time.
Tell me about the mission. What are we looking for this time?
So these are 2 big picture missions, literally. So Punch is going to get a big picture of the sun and the stuff around the sun that eventually makes its way to Earth and impacts us in terms of what we call space weather. And that impacts everything from auroras to communication satellites to our GPS. And so we really want to understand that better. The SphereX mission is a bigger picture of the entire universe, literally. It's going to get a map of the night sky in colors that are redder than the reddest colors our eyes can see. And by doing that, it's going to tell us about the history and origins of the universe in which we live.
What will we do with this data once we get it?
Sorry, say again?
What will we do with this data once we get it, once we get the information back? What do you hope to?
We get the data down, and then we release it to the world. And then the people really focused here in the United States will leverage that data to do all kinds of cool stuff with it. For Punch, it's going to be understanding the physics of that solar wind and how it spreads out from the sun and then eventually impacts us here at home. For SphereX, we're going to be doing what I call cosmological forensics. There's going to be astronomers that take pictures of galaxies or the pictures of galaxies and understand things, not just what happened to those galaxies themselves, but imagine a detective in a crime show that shows up and has to find out what happened before. They'll see all of those galaxies and understand not just what they're like, but they'll be able to kind of reverse time back to literally fractions of a second after the Big Bang and understand the physics back then.
Wow. We're understanding now there's a bit of a delay. What's up with that now?
So we're launching no earlier than tomorrow night, but stay tuned because these things always can change due to weather or other things. So you can follow along at nasa.gov/punch or nasa.gov/SphereX for the latest. And if things change, we'll have blog posts up about that.
Is there anything else we can gain by this mission other than what we're seeking to gain? Is there other things that we can probably find out?
Yeah, and one of the coolest things about the stuff that we do is sometimes we can't predict the science that's going to come out of it.
Right.
For SphereX in particular, we're getting such a massive data set. We're going to be looking at every star and galaxy, and some cases the region between stars. The data we bring down when we release it, we have ideas for what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. But the brilliant scientists all over this country are then going to use that data for things I can't even predict that right now what they're going to do with it, because they're going to find out some genius way to play with the data and the data from our other space telescopes, like the James Webb Space Telescope or the upcoming Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, and stitch those data together to answer questions. I can't even tell you what they are today because they'll make them up in the next few years.
Yeah. We don't have a live audience here at The Take, but if we did, they would want me to ask you, are we alone in the universe? Tell us, Sean.
So I think we are not. What is even more cool to me as a scientist is, that's a question we've been asking for millennia. And this is the first time in this generation where we're going to build spacecraft to answer that question explicitly and bring it into the realm of the scientific method. So we're going to be building not just we're launching SphereX this weekend, but then we're also going to follow that up with the Habitable Worlds Observatory, which is a telescope that will specifically look for signs of life on planets around other stars. Wow. And that's something that I'm really excited for the future.
Well, we are excited as well. Is there anything that could delay the launch anymore, or are you dead set on where we're going?
Right now it's still Friday's the earliest, but I would say stay tuned today, and we might have updates as the day goes along.
All right. Sean, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate that. We can't wait to see what's out there.
I can't wait to see it either.
Now to a talker tied to your grocery bill. Yep, consumer investigative reporter Liza Lucas joins us here on The Take. Welcome back to the show, first of all, Liza.
Good morning, Chesley. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. The bird flu, is it really having that much of an impact on these egg prices?
It really is. It really is. We have been following this. We've been price tracking at the grocery store, watching the data, because we know that the changes that people have seen and experienced with egg prices over the past few months, they are really hitting home for a lot of families. And in some cases, even our own team here, we know shoppers are showing up to stores and finding no eggs at all.
I'm one of them. You go to the store, there's nothing there. So break it down for us. Is the bird flu really the blame for this?
It really is. When we talk about bird flu, we're talking about the main driver. These outbreaks are directly hitting egg production and ultimately the supply chain, but it is also not the only factor. In fact, we had a chance to sit down with one of the experts right in our own backyard, Wendy White. She's a food industry expert at Georgia Tech, and she said on top of bird flu, we've had winter weather that has really hit the roads and caused a bottleneck, higher chicken feed prices, that of course impacts the industry, and then the holidays when everybody is baking and the demand is already high. Now all of that together, she says, really has created the perfect storm when we talk about increased prices. That's what we've seen play out the past few months especially. And then the location of the bird flu outbreaks. This is really interesting. It has also played a role as well in terms of why we've seen the price increase with eggs, but not chicken. Take a listen.
California's been hit really hard, the Midwest, and we just have a lot of egg-laying hen production out in those areas. The second factor is that we also have the age of the birds. Birds that are raised primarily for meat usually are only on the farm for about 7 weeks, where egg-laying hens can be on the farm for a year, even 2 years. Just that time on the farm and the exposure opportunity naturally lends itself to eggs being a little bit more susceptible than meat.
All right, so we're talking about supply and demand here. Any sense on how consumers can and businesses are dealing with this?
Well, this has been a tricky story because every day there is new information, new headlines coming out. Of course, the recent announcement that Denny's is going to add that surcharge. Waffle House, we know, was a huge story here. That has been making headlines. But then White also tells me she's been working with a lot of bakeries. Key ingredient when we talk about eggs, right? And some of those businesses, she says, are really having a hard time. Then we want to narrow down to the everyday shoppers like you and me and much of our audience, and we're reminded eggs are a protein-rich food, an easy way to stretch a budget. And we talked to some of those shoppers, including Kelsey and Alvid. They offer some perspective. Take a listen.
Eggs are a staple, just like milk and bread. Most households consume them. And so, it has a big impact on people's day-to-day lives when their staples, jump in price like that.
I usually like grits, eggs, and bacon, but I've been having grits and bacon. That's it, no eggs. So I'm waiting till the prices go down because I ain't. It's just, and then the economy how it's going. It's just I can't afford to buy eggs that high.
So he said something real key right there, Liza. What's your perspective on the price going up or maybe lasting longer?
Well, I don't know how people are going to take this news, but we're still in a very much wait and see mode. You see those signs at the grocery store. I snapped one there right at Trader Joe's where you're only allowed to buy a certain amount. Those restrictions are an effort to stabilize demand. Of course, there was actually a USDA report just last week that said sometimes people see those restrictions and they buy every time they go to the grocery store instead of what they need, and that just fuels the demand. Now, at the same time, we've also hit a record high in prices for a basic dozen eggs, but then the latest USDA USDA forecast shows that we could see prices increase more than 40% this year. So we may not be done with this yet. The question really, when I talk to the experts, is that it's going to come down to some seasonal factors that drive supply and demand. And then the key here, whether we continue to see bird flu be a problem in herd production.
All right, so next time you come on the show, Liza, we need you to come up with some alternatives to eggs.
Exactly.
Maybe powder or something.
I don't. We'll bring in an expert for that one too.
Okay, all right, we'll bring an expert with you. Yeah, it was powder eggs or something like this. I think I mentioned earlier maybe ducks, geese. I don't know. Something.
We've been talking about that. Yeah, some of us here.
All right. Thanks a lot, Liza Lucas.
Thanks,
really
Jesse.
appreciate that report. My final take. Yep, federal job cuts hitting closer to home, even for me. Hundreds of weathercasters and other National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration folks were fired on Thursday. A lot of those were meteorologists who do local forecasting, weather offices all around the country. Some of those friends as well as colleagues. They do critical work to save lives. Keep in mind that NOAA also compromises the Storm Prediction Center, also the National Hurricane Center, where early warnings save not only lives but also property. If the current administration cares about protecting its citizens from disasters, from devastation from these natural disasters, I hope they will pause and reconsider. Thanks for joining us, folks. We hope you have a great weekend. Say goodbye to you with this moment of Zen.